Before this video begins, I want to give a huge shout out to BarberDev98 for suggesting this video. He couldn't join me for this, but this one goes out to you, my friend. Enjoy the video. Since Micheal Myers vs Jason Voorhees has been kind of done to death by many people, even though I've been wanting to talk about their remake counterparts for a while, to make up for the fact that this has been done before, I'm going to do some other Halloween special Who Would Wins, just to make up for the fact that this one has been done before and I've technically already talked about both these characters. But that being said, let's find out between the 2009 remake of Jason Voorhees versus the 2018 remake of Micheal Myers, the very age-old question, who would win? Now I've read some information about these two just to brush up on some info, just in case somehow I got something wrong about the two of them, but there are some information that is a little bit wrong, which I will correct in this video. First and foremost, if any of you think Micheal is going to win this fight because he technically has more movies, technically speaking, he only has 4 movies, but I almost don't want to count the last one because, yeah, that last movie, Halloween Ends, was utterly rubbish. But technically speaking, for Jason, he has access to 2 previous movies. Technically speaking, the first Friday the 13th and the second movie are technically part of the same timeline, as this seems to be a Jason from part 3. Yeah, look at him. He wears the sack mask, then he gets the hockey mask. It seems to be basically Friday the 13th part 3 redone. So technically speaking, the first 2 movies are also part of his repertoire. So in terms of movies, they're not too far from being equal in terms of how many movies they have to pull from for all of their experience. But with that being said, there is a huge difference in terms of experience, which I will bring up right now. While you may think Micheal has more experience than Jason, given the fact that he has apparently killed a lot of people during Halloween night, don't forget, in this new remake universe, Micheal has been imprisoned 2 times, and literally the second time he was in prison for like nearly 40 years. So the first time he was in prison for probably a good 10 or so years, because he was like about maybe 12 when he killed his sister, and by the time he got out he was in his early 20s. But by the time of the remake movie 2018, apparently he'd been in prison for 40 years, making him roughly a 60-year-old man, which funny enough this website does confirm. He is roughly 60 years of age. And seeing how he barely does anything in the Halloween Ends movie, technically speaking he has only successfully had about 3 Halloweens worth of successful killing sprees without being fully stopped. But Jason, however, and it's been heavily implied throughout the movie, that he's been killing a lot of people that keep going to the lake. Literally, both the police officer and the old lady both state a lot of people have gone missing when they go to that lake. Meaning Jason has been killing people pretty much non-fucking stop. You can almost argue he's done it almost every single freaking year, because there's always someone stupid enough to keep going to Camp Crystal Lake. So I would actually argue Jason has way more experience than Micheal in terms of how many people they can kill and how creative they can get with said kills. And not to mention their experience completely changes the way they kill people. I'm not saying Micheal isn't clever, but he doesn't exactly set up any traps or doesn't do anything overly clever. He is smarter than the average person and can easily overpower them, and his intimidation factor makes all of their planning go to the wayside. However, Jason, yeah, he can plan ahead a lot. Dude is literally a strategist. He can set up bear traps, rope traps, alarm traps, light traps. Just seriously, this dude just can set up so many traps. He is a strategist. He's basically a hunter. And there is the huge difference between these two. Even if you want to say their speed and strength are comparable to a degree, I absolutely do not think Micheal can handle someone who acts like a hunter. He always goes up against people who do ordinary things. The police do not hunt. And even when he was hunted, nobody had any plans in place. Everybody just panicked and thought, fuck it, let's just try and rush him. Nobody was organized. Jason, however, he is organized. He knows what he's doing. Even when everything was going awry. He just knew what to do in a moment's notice. Not to mention there's a huge difference between the way these two think. Not to say Michael isn't smart, but he is clinically insane. Whereas Jason might not be clinically insane, schizophrenia, since he hears voices in his head, specifically the voice of his mother. So yeah, he is technically insane, but he is not clinically insane like Michael is. Plus, we see Jason use a huge variety of weapons and equipment. Plus, look in their environments that they grow up in. Michael hunts in the suburbs. Not exactly a very dangerous place. Jason? Not only is he in the middle of like a lake, he's in the middle of a fucking forest. Dude is literally like a predator. Hunting, stalking, and it's been proven multiple times the forest or a jungle is far more dangerous than the suburbs or even a city. I know what you're thinking, but cities have guns and violence and drugs. Yeah, you know what's in forests? Wild animals that can fucking kill you in one go. So literally, Jason is at the top of the fucking food chains in that fucking forest. You ever wonder why in most of the Friday movies you don't see any damn bears? Probably because he's killed them. While you could argue both Michael and Jason are very equally efficient when it comes to killing their people, I would argue Jason is just a little bit more efficient because he actually thinks things through. Michael sort of does things in the moment, which means he is very creative and quick on his feet, but yeah, so is Jason. So let's actually go into some proper statistics. Now, according to this scaling, somehow they say Michael has superhuman level strength and roughly peak human lifting strength. So he has superhuman level physical characteristics, but yet he only has peak level physical strength. Don't know how that makes any sense. If you are peak, how the hell can you also be superhuman? Whereas Jason is described as peak human physical with also peak lifting strength. That doesn't make any sense to me. How can they both have peak level lifting strength, but one somehow has superhuman, the other's peak human? That doesn't make a lick of sense. I'm beginning to think the only reason people say Michael has superhuman is because he doesn't seem to be human. Or because of like the belief of, oh, the more people are afraid of him, the stronger he is. The less people are afraid, the weaker he is. Which, yeah, I don't think that's actually how it works. This is Michael Myers, not frickin' Pennywise or Freddy Krueger. He's not some spiritual being, and he's not actually the boogeyman. He doesn't feed off people's fear and get stronger. He's not a damn spirit. He is literally a human being. Despite what the second movie tries to portray, the third movie actually kind of debunks that, saying that he is a man. He just, you know, is kind of crazy. He just refuses to die. Not to mention, Jason is just equally as scary and has done some pretty equally crazy things. Look around the entire movie of the Halloween remake. Michael almost never goes up against anyone just as physically intimidating as he is. Even with Laurie Strode training for 40 years in preparation, she's an old woman. She's not gonna be able to do much against him. And even when he's up against a bunch of people, look at all of them. They're out of shape. None of them are in peak physical. But Jason? Yeah, he goes up against someone who could be considered peak physical. There's like roughly this 20-year-old dude in the movie who is buff as shit. And he almost goes toe-to-toe with Jason. Keyword, almost. He does toss Jason around and manage to match his pushing strength, but Jason still overpowers him because, yeah, while this dude is almost the same height, Jason is so much bigger, so much bulkier, and again, greater experience. He has dealt with a shit ton of people. So even if this guy did temporarily push him around for a brief moment, it was not enough to say that this guy was equal to Jason. Let's just put it this way. This guy was at the peak of his youth. He literally was in his prime. Pretty strong, pretty athletic, pretty healthy. But Jason still absolutely overpowered the shit out of this guy. Not to mention, there's a huge difference between what would be their stamina. Not saying Michael isn't stamina efficient, he is surprisingly for his age, but here's the problem. The third movie, again, I don't want to use it, but the third movie kind of makes it seem like, yeah, age eventually will catch up with this guy, because he seems really slow and weak, which I guess makes sense since he's like 60 plus years old. Jason's only like in his mid 40s by the time of this remake, and yet that age doesn't seem to slow him down at all. If anything, he's not slow at all. He's in the peak of his prime as well. Sure, Michael has disappeared from sight, managed to trick the motion sensors of someone's light, which I don't know how he manages to do that. I feel like they just did that to show off that he might be super sneaky. But yeah, we've seen Jason fucking book it like an athletic human, which makes sense. He's in a camp where there's a lot of athletic things to do, like running, archery, hockey, baseball, all sorts of shit. Again, he's in the forest. He's like a wild man. Jason would have roughly the same physical characteristics as someone like Tarzan, for fuck's sake. Or, and as said by a very famous YouTuber in fitness, he basically said Jason is basically like Rambo. Which, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. He is basically Rambo Jason. So as to who's physically stronger, I can see them both being roughly equal. They both can lift up human beings of various weights and toss people around. So I don't think any one of them is physically stronger than the other. I almost would give the edge to Jason because again, he actually fought against someone who could physically overpower him if given the chance, but even when he got the chance, he still got overpowered and Jason was just, well, better. Michael never goes up against anyone who's physically overpowering him. The only time he was somewhat physically overpowered was by a young dude who had a somewhat of a major mental disorder, and Michael was in a very weakened state. Yeah, it's not exactly a fair comparison, is it? I'm sorry, but even though Jason was killing a lot of people and you think he'd be physically exhausted, nope, he's perfectly fine and tossing around some guy who almost could have matched his strength but just couldn't. So they both could be somewhat equal, but I would maybe give the slight edge to Jason. In terms of speed, I can see arguments of Michael Myers being possibly faster. Some people try to say he's like at peak human speed, and I don't know what peak human would mean in a sense. Does that mean like he's like at the peak of human capabilities, like he can run 30k an hour like Usain Bolt? But at the same time, they also will say, and this is the same website by the way, that Jason is an athletic human. So I'm sorry, I'm confused. What's better, peak or athletic? Whenever people say peak, they usually mean the best of the best. But here's the thing, Usain Bolt is only the best because he's an athletic person. He's not physically super strong, and he's not, you know, all these other things in between. He is at peak level athletic because he's fast as hell. So it's really just kind of confusing to figure out who's better. Typically people say if you're at the peak, that means you're the best. You know, like how Batman's considered peak human, right? But I don't know. Even if you want to give Michael some level of insane speed, similar how he can, you know, easily blitz other human beings, even with all the movies combined, he doesn't really show any sort of actual proper speed feats where we actually fucking see Jason literally leg it like an athletic, you know, sports star, gold medalist. And if you think, oh, but Michael can disappear. Yeah, funny enough, so can Jason. It's probably a very close bout, but I probably would give it to Jason. I'm not even trying to, you know, keep siding with Jason here. I just feel like he is faster. And this is one of the few times we see Jason actually fucking leg it in a movie, and he is fast as shit. And if you think, oh, well, Michael's gonna be a better stealth person. Nope. The website says they both are masters of stealth, so neither one of them is going to have the advantage of being stealthy. And then the piece de resistance, the final thing that will end this. Weapons. Yeah, Michael's cooked. He can use almost any weapon, I know, but he typically always sticks with what I believe is supposed to be a carving knife from the kitchen. I believe that's typically what he always gets. He gets one of those carving or chopping knives you would use for like your onions or cutting your beef. But Jason uses a fucking machete. Those things are anywhere from 2 to 3 feet long, like a damn sword. They're built for cutting through tree bark, and we've seen him absolutely just cut people into pieces with that damn thing. Chop off limbs, throw it through their bodies. Dude is just wicked good with that weapon, and I'm not surprised. It's meant for cutting tree bark. with minimal ease. It's basically a hand axe that's like a sword. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jason's going to have the superior range against Micheal. And even if you want to argue their combat speed is equal, yeah, it won't matter. Micheal's not gonna be able to block much, and even if he does block with, like, let's say his arm, yeah, his arm's gonna get cut by that damn machete. Unless Micheal perfectly blocks, like, the outside where the blade isn't, guess what's gonna happen? His arm's gonna be open, and Jason's just gonna fucking clock him in the face with a solid damn punch. And even if Micheal does stab Jason, you honestly think that shit's gonna do anything? Fuck no! Dude, he already got stabbed in the damn movie. I don't think knives and anything that does puncture damage does shit to him. Not to mention, in the movie, whether you want to believe he came back or not, he had the back of his head fucking chopped off by a wood chipper, and then a couple hours later, he's back alive all over again. Almost perfectly fine. Micheal went near something like a wood chipper and he died. Sure, he was already dead to begin with, and they chopped him to pieces just to make sure he doesn't come back. But yeah, there's the damn problem. Sure, Micheal has survived bullet fire, stab wounds, being beat in the face by cricket bats and metal pipes, aka just blunt force damage. Yeah, you could make arguments that Micheal survived a lot of damage, but again, even if you want to argue he's slightly more durable, yeah, I can make the same argument about Jason. And it doesn't matter if Micheal is technically more durable, with them having near equal strength, if not slightly in favor of Jason, near equal speed, and even if we want to argue their experience would be almost the same, even though I would actually give it more to Jason, the difference in their weapons is just staggering. Not to mention, there's something else Jason can do. He can throw an axe like a fucking boomerang and have that shit impale someone in the back perfectly in the spine. How in the hell do you do that? Like seriously, he lobs that shit like a professional axe thrower at one of those bloody Renaissance fairs. And it's not even a kind of axe you're supposed to throw. That shit is a wood axe for just chopping wood. You're not supposed to throw that shit, but he threw it like a damn boss. Like I'm telling you, he is just stupid good with weapons. The fact that he's a strategist, he has a blade with a longer reach, he has arguably more experience, might be on par in terms of strength and speed with Micheal, and both of them are pretty darn durable, and one of them might technically even have better healing than the other. Not to mention, I would argue that one of them has better face protection. Micheal just wears a rubber latex mask, not really gonna do anything against a knife to the head. Jason, he's wearing a hockey mask. That shit is made out of super hard and durable plastic. Sure, a knife could penetrate through it, but it's gonna take more effort to penetrate through that than a stupid latex mask. Not to mention, Jason will not just be limited to his machete, even if we were to limit him to it. Jason can use an axe, he has used a bow and arrow, he can probably use a crossbow, he's used bear traps, rope traps, he can use pretty much everything. And remember, Micheal seems to just not like doing shit without his mask. He seems to like be afraid to not wear it. So if Jason rips that shit off, Michael's just going to have a panic attack, and then Jason's just going to swing his machete and chop his head clean off. Jason's not afraid to show his face. In fact, when his mask was taken off in the movie, he got even more pissed off. You can try to say I'm glazing all you want, but I think I made a pretty solid argument. While the fight is pretty darn close, I would give it to Jason from the 2009 remake, and technically speaking he also has his feats from the secondary movie as well. Seeming how we're led to believe that Jason's been around for a long time, and seeing how he's wearing the burlap sack in the beginning of the movie and somewhat in the middle of the movie until he gets the hockey mask from the barn of that guy who definitely had weed. I think it's pretty safe to say Jason's been around for a long time, killing a lot of people that keep coming to the camp like a bunch of morons. Seriously, why do you keep going there? Why are these people so stupid? I don't get it. And why do the people who live where Micheal lives just stay there? Why don't they leave? Let him just keep coming back to an empty suburb or city or town, whatever it's called. Why don't they just leave? It shouldn't even be that damn hard. So yeah, if you want to know my honest opinion, I would say this fight is between mid to low difficulty. I'm not saying it's an easy victory for Jason, but I don't think this would be particularly hard. Micheal would just be probably a bit tougher than that dude he fought in the movie, but I still give Jason the win overall. Even if you want to argue their physical strength is roughly the same, their movement speed and combat speed might be equal, it comes down to range of weapons, usage of weapons, experience, and overall slightly better durability, and arguably also intelligence. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have any suggestions for who would win, let me know in the comments below. And the next video I will be doing, since we talked about 2 horror villains, how about we talk about 2 horror heroes? The next video will be Leon Kennedy versus James Sunderland, Resident Evil versus Silent Hill. Stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay awesome, and as always, Dragon Fist. Hiya.